皆さん、こんにちは。ゆった日本語教員会のリングです。どうぞよろしくお願いします。今日は日本語の発音について話していきたいと思います。では、一緒に勉強していきましょう。
Alright, so today we are talking about Japanese pronunciation, and today we're going to try to understand the essentials of Japanese pronunciation, be able to pronounce all of the sounds in the Japanese language, and we're going to identify the irregulars in the Japanese sound system. I'm missing a period right here. Let's go ahead and just throw that in. You guys won't mind. So, most languages have an alphabet, like English. Everyone knows the ABCs. But Japanese doesn't play by the same rules that English does. Japanese starts with a set of syllables. And who remembers what a syllable is? Who remembers fourth grade or whatever grade you learned that in? Well, basically, syllables are a combination of sounds with the vowel acting as its center, also known as its nucleus. They also have a consonant or a group of consonants at the front called the onset and at the end called the coda. So, vowels and consonants. A vowel is a sound you make with a comparatively open vocal tract while vibrating the vocal cords. Now, what are the vowels in English? Oh, Mr. Ring, Mr. Ring, Mr. Ring, I know what the vowels are. It's so obvious. The vowels are A, E, I, O, and U, and sometimes Y. I learned this in English class when I was in fourth grade. Yeah, that's kind of right. Well, let's talk about phonics a little bit. We have this wonderful letter in English called A. And that A makes the A sound, like dad or apple. What about in words like about or art or Amy? Alright, so do you guys see a problem here? I mean, look, it's like here, 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 and A here. In English, sometimes we use one letter to describe many sounds. Luckily, this almost never happens in Japanese. In Japanese, the vowels are much more straightforward. Here is a chart of hiragana and romaji. The Japanese vowels are on the far right of this chart. You can see them written in romaji and in hiragana. They are a, I, U, E, O. Again, that's a, I, U, E, O. So, let's think. How many vowels does Japanese have? You have 5 seconds.
Ice cream,
So, Japanese really has only these vowels. So this ah sound they have right here is kind of like the ah in father. This e that you have right here is kind of like the vowel sound that you see in the word key. This sound that you see right here is kind of like the you see in pool. Then we have this vowel right here, e, and this is like the e you see in egg. Now last one we have o. Now when you say o in Japanese, it's short, not quite as long as the English O. Instead of saying O, Japanese people say O, like in the word open. Open. Now we're going to review the vowels with my friend Yoshiyuki. It's impossible to master a new language without opening your mouth and speaking, so we're going to practice all the vowels with Yoshiyuki. He's going to say the vowels one time. So listen and then try to imitate his pronunciation. Here we go.
あ、い、う、え、お、あ、い、う、え、お。あ、お、青。い、え、家。い、え、家。う、え、上。
Alright, so let's talk about consonants now. Consonants, unlike vowels, have a more restricted vocal tract. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, consonants are all sounds where you use different parts of your mouth, like your tongue or your teeth or your lips, to block the air coming out of your mouth when you speak. And when you do that, you get to make all of these kinds of sounds. The Romaji letters at the top of the chart, all those are consonants. Those are a lot different than the vowels because the vowels have a less restricted airflow. So let's look at the Japanese consonants real quick. This isn't a complete list, but it's pretty good. It has most of everything you need on it. So let's go ahead and say the consonants that are used in Japanese real quick. We have k, s, t, n, h, m, y, d, w. Now that was kind of fast, and we're going to practice this a lot later, so don't worry if you didn't get it that time. So the consonants at the top of the chart, they combine with one of these 5 vowels and together make a syllable. And the Japanese writing, like hiragana, usually depicts syllables rather than specific sounds. And when I say specific sounds, I'm talking about consonants. With the exception of n right here, all hiragana depict a syllable. So let's see how this works. First, we're going to take a consonant like s. And now let's take one of the vowels. If we take the s and then add the we get su. And this is the symbol for su. And that's basically how this chart works. You have your consonants, which go first, and then the vowels follow after. So here we have k and a, and that means that this symbol right here is pronounced ka. All right, so let's look at some other examples. T, e, that gives us te right here. Te. N and o give us no, no. And then we have the Japanese r and a to get ra, ra. So what if you want to combine a t sound and a k sound together? Well, sadly, Japanese pronunciation isn't going to allow us to do that because Japanese doesn't allow for what's called consonant clusters, or rather groups of consonants. Now we're going to kind of change this rule and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the future. But for example, I can't take an S and I can't just add it to a K and get sk in Japanese. I'm going to have to combine one of the symbols in the S column with one of the symbols in the K column. Okay, so now that you know how to read the hiragana chart, let's go through and read it one time. Now, as I'm reading through it, a couple of the sounds may surprise you, and we'll talk about that later. But let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start with the vowels. Here we go. A, I, U, E, O, Ka, Ki, Ku, Ke, Ko, Sa, Shi, Su, Se, So, Ta, Chi, Tsu, Te, To, Na, Ni, Nu, Ne, No, Ha, Hi, Fu, He, Ho, Ma, Mi, Mu, Me, Mo, Ya, Yu, Yo, Da, Di, Du, De, Do, Wa, O, N. Alright, as stated before, in theory you can take any one of the consonants and add it before a vowel. However, there is some irregularity. And let's go ahead and look at those specifically one more time. The first is the n, and that can only occur at the end of a syllable, and it doesn't have to have a vowel come after it. An example of that is the name Ken, which is a common Japanese name. The next one is when you have a s and an e. Instead of saying si, it becomes she. And a good example of she can be seen in the word sushi. The next irregularity is t and e. Instead of saying t, they say chi. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Japanese people love tea. Don't they drink it every day? The word for tea is different in Japanese. And a good example of how the chi sound is used is in this other common Japanese name, Uchida. Uchida. The next irregularity is t and u. Instead of tu, they say tsu. A good example of this tsu sound can be seen in the word tsunami. This word has also been adopted by the English, so we also say tsunami to mean a large wave. Next is fu, which sounds like an F sound, but it is included in the H consonant column. And this can be seen in the word Fujisan or Mount Fuji. Again, that's Fujisan. And the following syllables don't occur naturally in Japanese, and those are, for example, anything else that starts with an F, the yi and the ye, the we, woo, we, and a wo. Remember that this last W-O, wo, is actually just pronounced pretty much just like the normal O sound. Alright, and an example of that O can be seen in this sentence right here. Sushi o taberu, which means to eat sushi. Sushi o taberu. Okay, now we're winding down the video, so don't forget that basic Japanese writing uses a set of syllables instead of an alphabet. Unlike German and unlike Spanish, which use characters for their alphabet that come from Greek and Latin, Japanese uses hiragana as its basic system for writing. Hiragana represents syllables. The next thing to remember is that Japanese has 5 vowels. Those are a, I, U, E, O. The next thing you're going to want to remember is that Japanese syllables usually consist of a consonant and a vowel. Sometimes the syllable can end in an n sound, but that's the only time when a syllable can end in a consonant. And don't forget the basic 7 irregularities in the hiragana chart. And those are the n sound that we just talked about, how it can come at the end of a syllable, how there is no C in Japanese, but they say shi. They don't say T in Japanese, rather they say chi. They don't say tu, but say tsu. Instead of saying hu, they say fu. And there are some excluded sounds. And the wo is actually pronounced as an o. Okay. So, If my pronunciation was correct, you understood the essentials of Japanese pronunciation. You were able to pronounce all the sounds in Japanese and identified the irregulars in the Japanese sound system.
皆さん、初めて作った動画を見てくださってありがとうございました。次のレッスンでは新しい先生が教えます。じゃあ楽しみにしてください。では、さようなら。